Early in the morning, when the sky was still pale and quiet, a man stood near a small bridge at the edge of his land. His name was Daniel. He was not rich, not famous, and not loud. Most people in the nearby neighborhood barely noticed him. To them, he was just a silent man who lived alone near the old bridge that connected their clean, modern neighborhood to the main road. For years, Daniel woke up before sunrise. He fixed fences, cleaned the roadside, and checked the bridge after heavy rain. He never complained. He never asked anyone for help. People passed him every day in expensive cars, never stopping, never waving. Some did not even know his name. That morning felt different. Daniel heard a loud noise in the distance. At first, he thought it was thunder. But the sky was clear. Then the ground started to shake. He turned and saw something that made his heart stop. 2 large bulldozers were coming toward the bridge. Behind them were trucks, workers, and men in clean suits pointing at papers. No one looked at Daniel. No one spoke to him. The machines stopped right on the bridge. Daniel walked closer and asked calmly, "What is happening here?" One man glanced at him and said, "Road work. Move aside." Daniel frowned. "This bridge, who have permission?" The man laughed softly. "Permission? This bridge blocks our new plan. We are removing it." Before Daniel could say another word, the machine started moving. Metal screamed. Wood cracked. Dust filled the air. The bridge, which Daniel had watched over for years, was being torn apart. Cars stopped. People came out of their houses to watch. Some recorded videos on their phones. Others whispered. A woman said, "Finally. This bridge was ugly." Another man added, "Why does this poor guy even care?" Daniel stood there as pieces of the bridge fell into the water below. His chest felt heavy, but his face stayed calm. No tears. No shouting. One worker pushed him back and said, "You can't stand here." Daniel stepped away slowly. Within an hour, the bridge was gone. Only broken wood, bent steel, and silence remained. People clapped lightly. The men in suits shook hands. One of them looked at Daniel and said, "You should be thankful. This will raise property value." Daniel looked at the empty space where the bridge once stood. Then he nodded and walked back toward his small house. Inside, the house was simple. 1 table. 1 chair. Old photos on the wall. Daniel sat down and stared at a folder lying on the table. It was thick and old. He opened it slowly. Maps. Land papers. Legal stamps. He closed it again and took a deep breath. Outside, the neighborhood celebrated. People believed the problem was solved. They believed the bridge was the issue. They believed they were in control. That afternoon, traffic began to slow. Cars lined up near the neighborhood entrance. Drivers grew impatient. Horns filled the air. By evening, it got worse. There was only 1 narrow road left. Daniel stood by his window and watched from far away. He said nothing. The next day, an ambulance tried to pass but struggled to turn. People shouted. Someone yelled, "Why is this happening?" Another voice answered, "There is no other way out." Confusion spread. Still, no one came to Daniel. On the 3rd day, a man from the neighborhood knocked on Daniel's door. He spoke quickly and nervously. "Sir, traffic is bad. Maybe you know something about this road." Daniel looked at him quietly and said, "I know." The man smiled weakly. "Can you help?" Daniel paused. Then he replied, "Not yet." That night, Daniel picked up his phone and made 1 short call. He said only 1 sentence. "Do nothing. Let them wait." He placed the phone down and looked toward the dark road outside. They thought the bridge was power. They didn't know the road was his. Morning came with noise and anger. Daniel woke before sunrise, but the road outside was already loud. Cars stood in long lines. Drivers shouted from windows. Horns screamed without rest. The quiet neighborhood had turned restless overnight. Daniel washed his face and stepped outside. People noticed him now. Some stared. Some whispered. No one smiled. A man in a suit walked toward him with fast steps and a forced grin. "Sir, we have a small problem," the man said. "The bridge work caused traffic issues." Daniel nodded slowly. "I see that." The man left nervously. "IT is temporary. We will fix IT soon." Daniel looked at the road, then back at the man. "Fix what exactly?" The man avoided his eyes. "The flow." Daniel said nothing more and walked away. By noon, tempers exploded. A delivery truck blocked the narrow road. A schoolbus could not turn. Children cried inside. Parents shouted at cars. Police arrived but could do nothing. There was no space to move. Someone pointed at Daniel's house and said, "Ask him. He lives here." 2 guards walked to Daniel again. This time, their voices were sharp. "You need to help us open a way." Daniel answered calmly. "I didn't close anything." Hij scoffed. "Don't play games." "I am not," Daniel replied. 1 guard stepped closer. "Who do you think you are?" Daniel met his eyes. "Someone who warned you." The guards left angry. That evening, the neighborhood meeting hall filled with voices. Rich residents complained loudly. They blamed workers. They blamed the city. Some blamed Daniel. "He always watched that bridge," one woman said. "He must know something." Another man left. "He is just a poor landholder. He has no power." Outside, Daniel sat alone on his porch. He listened to the noise without reacting. He remembered the years people crossed his land without asking. He remembered insults, jokes, and looks of disgust. He remembered staying silent. Later at night, a city official came. He spoke politely at first. "Sir, we need cooperation." Daniel offered him a chair. The man did not sit. "You must allow temporary access," the official said. Daniel asked softly, "Based on what right?" The official showed a document. Daniel read it carefully. Then he returned it. "This paper does not cover my land," Daniel said. The official frowned. "You are making this difficult." Daniel smiled slightly. "We did not start this." The man left angry. The next day was worse. An ambulance arrived again. This time, it could not pass at all. Sirens echoed. People panicked. Phones recorded everything. News fans appeared. A reporter spoke into a camera. Residents are trapped after the bridge removal. Daniel watched from a distance. He felt no joy. Only calm. Inside his house, he opened the old folder again. He spread maps across the table. Every line was clear. Every signature was real. This road, the narrow one everyone depended on, belonged to him alone. He picked up his phone. Messages filled the screen. Missed calls. Unknown numbers. Offers. Threats. Daniel ignored them all. That night, he locked the folder and placed it back in the drawer. He turned off the lights and sat in the dark. Outside, the neighborhood finally felt fear. They still thought Daniel was powerless. They were wrong. The silence grew heavy around his small house. Wind moved the trees slowly. Daniel breathed deep and steady. He knew patience was strength. Tomorrow would bring more pressure, more lease, more fear. He was ready. He had waited years for this moment. Not for revenge, but for respect. When the sun rose again, the road would still belong to him. And the people who left before would finally listen. This was only the beginning of the storm. Power was shifting quietly. Daniel stayed calm because truth was on his side. Every rule, every line of law, protected him. Soon, the waiting would end. And when it did, nothing in the neighborhood would ever feel the same again. The bridge was gone, but his resolve was stronger. The road waited. Justice was patient. And patience, Daniel believed, always won in the end. The city would soon learn who truly controlled their way out forever after they began with fear instead of anger. The neighborhood woke up quiet. No horns. No shouting. Just long lines of cars standing still like they had given up. People checked their phones again and again, hoping for good news. There was none. Daniel walked along the edge of his land as the sun rose. Dew covered the grass. Birds moved freely, unlike the people trapped nearby. He noticed eyes following him now. Curious eyes. Worried eyes. Respect was slowly replacing pride. At 9 in the morning, a black car stopped near his house. A lawyer stepped out. Clean suit. Calm face. He carried a briefcase and spoke politely. Mr. Daniel, he said, may we talk? Daniel nodded and invited him inside. They sat at a small table. The lawyer opened his case and pulled out maps, copies, and city plans. Daniel watched quietly. You own this road, the lawyer said carefully. Every meter. Daniel replied, I know. The lawyer cleared his throat. The bridge removal caused an emergency. People are stuck. The city made a mistake. Daniel leaned back. They did not ask. The lawyer nodded slowly. That is true. Outside, more cars arrived. Officials. Engineers. People with worried faces. News cameras followed them. The story was growing. Inside the house, the lawyer spoke again. What do you want? Daniel thought for a moment. Respect, he said. And fairness. The lawyer looked surprised. Not money? Daniel shook his head. Not first. By midday, rumors spread fast. Someone posted online that the road was private. Another said the owner was poor but smart. People who once left now felt small. A group of residents gathered outside Daniel's house. They did not shout. They waited. One woman stepped forward. She looked tired. We treated you badly, she said. We were wrong. Daniel listened. Amen added, we thought you were nothing. Daniel answered calmly, you never asked who he was. Silence followed. That afternoon, the city sent another official, higher than before. He spoke carefully and chose his words with fear. We want to rebuild the bridge, he said. Daniel replied, you destroyed it without permission. We will rebuild it better, the man said quickly. Daniel stood up and walked to the window. He pointed at the narrow road. That road stays closed until things are done right. The official swallowed. What are your conditions? Daniel turned around. Public apology. Legal agreement. And safety rules. The official nodded. Agreed. Outside, people cheered quietly when they heard talks were happening. Hope returned, but shame stayed. Later that evening, Daniel walked alone to where the bridge once stood. The water below flowed calmly. He remembered building the bridge with his father long ago. No cameras then. No praise. Just hard work. A young boy from the neighborhood approached him. Sir, he asked, are you angry? Daniel smiled gently. No. Then why did you wait? The boy asked. Daniel replied, because waiting teaches lessons shouting never can. The boy nodded and ran away. Night came. Daniel sat on his porch again. His phone rang. This time, he answered. It's done, the lawyer said. Hij accepted everything. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Not from relief, but from peace. Tomorrow, the road would open again. But it would open with rules, respect, and truth. The neighborhood had learned something powerful. Strength does not always stand tall and loud. Sometimes it waits quietly, until the right moment comes. Daniel looked up at the stars. The bridge would return. But more importantly, so would dignity. The people who once ignored him now understood. Power was never taken by force. It was held by patience. And patience, Daniel knew, had changed everything forever. The thought changed everything. Daniel woke up to silence instead of noise. No horns. No shouting. The road outside was empty. People had stopped trying to leave. They were waiting. By mid-morning, black cars arrived. Lawyers stepped out first. Then city officers. Then business leaders from the neighborhood. Their faces were serious now. No smiles. No jokes. They walked toward Daniel's small house together. Daniel opened the door before they knocked. He already knew why they were there. A lawyer spoke politely. Sir, we would like to talk. Daniel nodded and let them in. They sat around the old wooden table. The room was simple, almost empty. The visitors looked uncomfortable. The lawyer opened his briefcase. There has been a misunderstanding. Daniel leaned back in his chair. You removed a bridge without asking. The lawyer cleared his throat. We believed it was public. Daniel stood up and opened the drawer. He placed the thick folder on the table. Slowly, he opened it. Maps covered the surface. Stamps. Dates. Signatures. This land, Daniel said calmly, pointing, is mine. The road is mine. The bridge stood on my property. The room went quiet. One official whispered, that cannot be right. Daniel slid a document forward. It is. The lawyer read it carefully. His face changed. He passed it to the others. One by one, they realized the truth. The power had shifted. A business leader spoke softly. We can compensate you. Daniel shook his head. You already tried that. Another man said, we can rebuild the bridge quickly. Daniel looked at him. You destroyed it quickly too. Silence returned. Outside, people watched through windows. Phones were raised. Everyone wanted answers. Daniel finally spoke again. He will allow rebuilding. Relief filled the room. But, Daniel continued, this time, it will be done with respect. Legal permission. Fair rules. And public apology. The lawyer hesitated. Apology? Daniel met his eyes. Yes. By afternoon, news spread fast. Cameras gathered again, but this time, they faced the neighborhood leaders. One man stepped forward and spoke into the microphone. His voice shook. We made a mistake. People gasped. We destroyed private property without permission. We apologize. Daniel watched from the edge of the crowd. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. Work began the next day. Engineers followed Daniel's plans. Workers treated the land carefully. No shortcuts. No disrespect. Residents stopped mocking him. Some waved nervously. Some avoided eye contact. Traffic slowly improved. A week later, the bridge stood again. Stronger. Safer. Better designed. On opening day, a small ceremony was held. Daniel was invited to speak. He stood quietly before the crowd. He did not want this, he said simply. He wanted respect. No applause followed at first. Then one person clapped. Then another. Soon, everyone did. Daniel walked away afterward, returning to his quiet life. The neighborhood had learned a lesson hij would never forget. Hij tore down a bridge, believing power was loud. Hij discovered power was patient. And patience had won. The bridge was back, but peace did not return immediately. Something deeper had changed in the neighborhood. People now drove slowly when passing Daniel's house. Some lowered their windows to greet him. Others looked straight ahead, ashamed. Daniel noticed everything, yet said little. One afternoon, a group of residents gathered near the bridge. They spoke in low voices, watching Daniel from a distance. Finally, one woman stepped forward. She was the same woman who once called the bridge ugly. Meester Daniel, she said, forcing a smile, we are grateful. Daniel nodded politely. You are welcome. She hesitated. We want to invite you to the community council. Daniel looked surprised. Why? Because, she said softly, we judged you. We were wrong. Daniel did not answer right away. He looked at the bridge, then at the road, then back at her. He will think about it. That evening, Daniel sat alone inside his house. The folder lay open again on the table. But this time, he was not checking maps or papers. He was thinking about the past. About Silas. About patience. About how power had come to him only after he stopped chasing it. The phone rang. It was the same lawyer from before. We would like to settle everything fully, the lawyer said. Long-term maintenance, road access, shared responsibility. Daniel listened carefully. Put it in writing, he said. Clear rules. Equal respect. Of course, the lawyer replied. The next week, contracts were signed. For the first time, Daniel sat across from people who once ignored him. Hij spoke carefully now. Hij listened. The road became shared, but ownership was honored. Signs were placed. Boundaries were marked. Nothing was taken without permission again. Children began playing near the bridge. Parents felt safe. Ambulances passed easily. Life returned to normal. But something else returned too. Respect. One morning, Daniel walked across the bridge slowly. A young boy stopped him and asked, "Did you build this?" Daniel smiled. He helped protect it. The boy nodded like it was the greatest answer he had ever heard. Not everyone was happy. Some rich residents still felt bitter. Hij whispered that Daniel was difficult. That he enjoyed control. Daniel heard the words and let them pass. He had learned something important. Silence did not mean weakness. Waiting did not mean fear. Sometimes, justice needed time to breathe. One evening, a storm came. Heavy rain fell for hours. The river below the bridge rose dangerously. People panicked again. Daniel was already there. He guided workers. He checked supports. He stayed calm. The bridge held strong. When the storm passed, people cheered. Someone shouted, "Daniel saved us." He shook his head. "We saved ourselves," he said. Later that night, Daniel stood alone under the stars. He felt no anger left in his heart. Only clarity. The bridge was no longer just wood and steel. It was a reminder. A lesson written into the land. Never take what is not yours. Never mock what you do not understand. Never mistake silence for weakness. The neighborhood changed its rules after that. New leaders were chosen. Better planning was made. And every decision now began with one question. Who does this affect? Daniel returned to his quiet mornings. He still woke early. He still worked with his hands. He still spoke little. But now, when cars passed, many slowed down. Hij knew his name. Hij knew his story. And hij knew one thing for sure. Some bridges can be rebuilt. But respect, once broken, takes much longer to restore. Daniel had waited for it patiently. And in the end, it came to him on its own. The weeks after the storm were come. The neighborhood moved slowly, as if learning how to breathe again. Daniel returned to his routine. He fixed fences, cleaned the roadside, and watched the bridge each morning. Nothing felt rushed anymore. People no longer crossed his land without greeting him. Some stopped to talk. Some only nodded. That was enough. One afternoon, the community council met again. This time, Daniel accepted the invitation. He sat quietly at the end of the table while others spoke. Plans were discussed. Mistakes were admitted. New rules were written. When it was Daniel's turn, he stood and said, "Power should protect people, not ignore them." The room stayed silent. Those words stayed with everyone long after the meeting ended. A month passed. The bridge became part of daily life again. Children rode bikes across it. Old couples walked slowly in the evenings. The road stayed open, clear, and respected. Daniel never asked for praise. But it found him anyway. A local newspaper wrote a short story. It did not call him rich or powerful. It called him patient. Daniel read the article once, folded it, and placed it in the drawer beside the old folder. He closed it gently. One day, a young city worker visited him. The man looked nervous. "Sir," he said, "I wanted to thank you. I was there when the bridge was destroyed. I stayed quiet. I was wrong." Daniel nodded. "You learned. That matters." The worker smiled with relief and left. That night, Daniel sat outside under the stars. The road was quiet. The bridge stood strong. He felt no victory, only balance. He thought about how easily people confuse noise with strength. How quickly they mock what they do not own. How slowly they learn. Daniel had learned long ago. True power waited. True power listened. True power did not need to shout. One early morning, Daniel placed a small sign near the road. It was simple. No warnings. No threats. It read, "Shared land needs shared respect." People read it as they passed. Some smiled. Some stopped to think. Years later, the neighborhood became a model for others. Visitors came to study its planning. Officials asked questions. Daniel stayed in the background. Someone once asked him why he never sold the land. Daniel answered, "Because some things are worth more than money." The bridge aged. The road carried thousands of stories. And Daniel aged with them, quietly. When people spoke of the past, they no longer talked about the day the bridge fell. They talked about the day they learned. And Daniel? He continued his life, unchanged. He had never wanted control. He had only wanted respect. In the end, that was what remained. A quiet man. A strong bridge. A road that taught a lesson no one forgot.